if you ask me how it's being used today, I've got a nice little list here that I.
Okay, well, let's work on both our lists. We're live now, and we're talking with Sylvain Metz, who is an award-winning former newspaper journalist, and he is an author. His book is called Let's Meet Blockchain Technology, Changing for Working, Creating, and Playing. And Sylvain is a blockchain enthusiast. He has many deep thoughts. He makes it fun. He's a great writer. He has opinions about NFTs, cryptocurrency, and so much more. So we are going to dive into that. If you're one of these people that says, well, I've heard about some of these terms, but I really need it to be explained to me in an accessible way, and even more importantly, explained in what can I do with it, right? Because it's so frustrating to hear about these theories and white papers, and it's like, okay, well, how can it change my life? How can it change the world? So Sylvain is here to demystify all that and more. So Sylvain, how the heck are you today?
I'm doing well, Robert. How are you today?
I am fabulous now that I am speaking to you, and we mentioned you a little bit, we hyped you up, but in your own words, what is your current focus and passion?
Uh, right now, my focus is on writing. Right now, my interest is blockchain and how it's being used and developed. That's my passion at the moment. Other than that, writing.
Okay, and so and writing is wonderful, right? It works this muscle, and it's a way for you to kind of work those brain gears and to express yourself in a fun way that will outlive you, right? We have this limited time on this earth, but then you put out some book, and it might be in some library centuries from now, and so you live on in that sort of way, especially in these very interesting ideas such as Web 3.0 and money and what does it all mean. And so what's a good jumping off point here? Like if someone says, okay, blockchain, like help me understand it. What's the metaphor? What does it mean? What's your answer?
Okay. Well, to begin with, blockchain is really I see it as a movement to privacy, a movement to reclaim the web, to decentralize it, to make it an equal playing field, is where we are now. When it started, it was a challenge to internet commerce as we knew it back in the early 2000s, and it has since grown to encompass privacy.
Okay. And so you think about how these sort of these aspects of life evolve, right? You think like how money came to be, like, well, needed some way to barter something, and then like bartering for items then turned into coins and precious metals and then printed currency, and then all the way up to now until now there's like futures and derivatives, and it doesn't even money doesn't even exist, right? It's all digital. And
Right.
then they turned it into this kind of democratized like peer-to-peer system now where no one even owns it. And so can you tell us about that, like what money is? Because even just like from the basics, like what the heck is money supposed to be, and like what is it turned into?
Money is just a way to swap goods and services. Basically, there are different forms. As we said, there was bartering. There were back in the day. There were different coins and tokens and precious metals. It's evolved, but the point is just or just bartering. I'll do this for you. I'll paint your fence if you cut down my tree, something like that. But that's basically what it is. It's just a way to eat food, to eat dinner, to buy dinner every day. It's a way to get around. We again, it started in our wallets, and now as you noted, it's wireless. We don't really see it. We just know it exists, and you have to have it. I mean, there's just no
Right.
doubt about it. You have to have it to exist today.
And why is there the need for it to improve? Like, why are we still not on the gold standard? Why does it have to speed up? Why is it digital? Why can't we just still live in the way that it used to be?
That's kind of out of my wheelhouse. I have some opinions. The gold standard, as I mentioned in the book, there's a talks about that the gold when we had gold in the day, you would back that up with the amount of currency. So the more gold you had, that was the amount, that was your worth. And especially during war when the World War One began, they couldn't produce enough. They needed more to produce more armaments than they had in gold, so they found a way. They used paper instead. So that's that. But the thing about blockchain is really, as I said, so when the concept was created, it really had nothing to do with money. It was more wanting to create an equal playing field. Uh, the creator Satoshi Nakamoto, he issued his white paper on October 31st, 2008, and I suspect he had a problem with the internet commerce as we know it today, and he didn't feel like the consumer was getting the better end of the deal, especially when there was a dispute. So he pulled together all these technologies, blockchain, which was the concept of that, which is a ledger, the timestamp, which was developed in the 90s to timestamp digital documents, but nobody used it until he picked it up and included it in blockchain. And the smart contracts, which aren't really contracts as we know it. Basically, a smart contract is simply an agreement that if terms and conditions are met, then the goods and services are delivered. So,
And
that was it when he started, and he wanted to use blockchain as the ledger, and Bitcoin was to be the currency. And in the early days, the currency, as many people know, was only worth a few cents a piece. It was a novelty. He mined the first Bitcoin in January of 2009, and it wasn't until May 22nd of 2010 when a gentleman, computer crypto miner, Laszlo Honetz in Florida, he used 10,000 Bitcoins. I know people are going to gasp to buy 2 Papa John's pizzas. There was at that time it was worth $41. But it was a novelty. Nobody had any idea. They had this notion of, we're going to create this network. We're gonna buy and sell. We don't need a middleman. That was another main thing. You don't have to go through a bank. You don't have to go through a finance office. You don't have to go through anywhere. I can send you money directly. And that's how it was, and that's how it started. And then it kind of, to borrow from blockchain, it kind of took a fork somewhere, where instead of being this utility, it became this like gold and silver. It became a precious metal almost, but it's unlike a precious metal. It's code. It's purely on faith that it has value. So that's kind of an interesting turn of events. But I found a paper in the Journal of Money Lending and Credit from 2019. These two researchers determined that it was basically speculators that were driving up the prices. There's this fight between speculation and utility and how it's used, and this confluence of the two. So they went all the way back to a paper that was published in 1911 regarding after the Civil War and the buyback of the greenback, our first currency in the United States, our official currency in the United States. And determined that, if people have this belief that they hold on to something, it's going to rise in value. Now, when you ask me how it got here to, what was it, 65,000 of Bitcoin, I have no idea. But I know one Bitcoin can be divided into 100 million Satoshis. So there's really no danger of them going away.
And the more you think about it, it's like I don't know, like money in general is a silly idea, right? Because it's a number and you can split it. And then I like the way you put that there. There was the utility versus speculation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have all these gallons of gasoline, well, that has a use, right? That can power an engine. But then if you have all this gold, like what use is gold? It's just like a precious metal. It's valuable because there's a limited quantity of it. And so like when someone first explained this whole idea of blockchain to me, he was saying like, well, say you have like money in a bank, right? And that bank, they can go and like change the value in that database. Just one person could do it. But then when you have the whole network, say like 100,000 people have copies of the ledger, and someone would have to hack like 50,000 in one of those machines. And so it's like distributed enough and enough people agree on it where like it can't really be changed. And then there's this idea of like exchanging the Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency for dollars. And that's an even sillier idea, right? Is because why is one Bitcoin 10 cents or 65,000? Because that's the price that people are willing to pay for it. So it's amazing how like the mass hysteria almost has like a personality of its own.
Well, like you said, you go back, that we are like that. I don't know. People are just crazy. I mean, you have people, they put their faith in something that has, it's just based on faith. But really, to get away though, money is only one. You see, that's the thing. Blockchain is more than money. That's what that people have to get over that. Blockchain, I mean, cryptocurrency. Excuse me. Cryptocurrency is only one leg of the whole blockchain technology method. It's think of it like this: blockchain is like the train. It's the engine, and it's also got the car behind it carrying the goods, and it's carrying cryptocurrency, and it's carrying something called non-fungible tokens or NFTs, which are basically assets that have been digitized and monetized, and it's carrying information, and it's doing that, and to get on board to ride this train, you need a coin or a token to get on. And the train itself is Web3, which is the decentralization of the redecentralization of the World Wide Web. And it doesn't take the straight road; it takes the tourist road. It just kind of meanders here and there. It doesn't go in a straight line. So that's it. I mean, the biggest part for me, yeah, the crypto is for a lot of people. Oh, that's it. But really, the notion of transferring information peer to peer without a third party is the most exciting thing. Again, you're reclaiming your privacy. You're making sure that your private information is kept private. And it's a huge challenge it's going to be a huge challenge to centralized platforms like social media platforms and banking platforms, and it's just going to be what they call the great disruptor. And if you don't mind, I've got here. I'm gonna, for your viewers, I want to let you know just how it's being used today, and it's really exciting. In addition to the peer-to-peer transactions, it's being used in the healthcare industry to transfer and store personal information, such as health records, as well as research. It's being used by governments to store land records and for voting, and we'll get back to that. It's being used by industries to monitor and protect supply chains. Software is being developed to provide users with an ability to store and control one's personal identity. It's being used to buy and sell property, obtain mortgages, buy and sell securities, arrange travel, buy and sell art, music, games, videos, publish books, and improve the profitability of newspapers and magazines. And it's being used by law firms both internally to store information as well as to help them draw up contracts for their clients. Social media platforms, messaging services, and storage clouds, browsers, and VPN services have been and are being built around blockchain technology. So that's pretty exciting to think about all those elements being used they're drawing on the security of blockchain. And that's the main thing, the security. Once you create they use asymmetrical encryption. So once you create your transaction, be it buying and selling crypto or buying or selling some service as an NFT or sending information, it's encrypted and then it's time stamped. and then it's sent to nodes, computers, and their computer operators, to verify. They use the encryption to verify it, and then they stamp it. They take a picture, they send it on to the next person to verify. It goes through several verifications each step of the way. It's copied and it's sent on. So you have this linear line, kind of like a chain of custody. You can think of it like in a crime scene, from the crime scene all the way to the courtroom. You can track it from end to end, and then after several verifications, it's then put into a block, and that block is joined with other blocks. And again, we go through this again. They verify the block using hash, which is like a digital fingerprint form of encryption, and it goes on to the next and the next, and all the way down. So it can't be tampered with.
So in order to help us understand like all the non-money aspects of it, because it's one thing to say, hey, it's used for this and this. Like, is it, and help me out here, is it safe to say that like a public key is like your read, a private key is like your write, and then there's like a history in addition? Is like, what's a good way of like simply explaining this?
This is where you get into the actual mechanics of blockchain. You have again with asymmetrical encryption, you have private keys and public keys, and you think of a private key like your PIN, and you think of public key like an email address, and this is mixed together, and you get a string of characters, digits, just a string of characters, and that string identifies you. And you send it, and the person with the other key can decrypt it. And see, I give an example in the book where I one of the Shakespeare sonnets, Sonnet 18, I put it through Shaw 256, and I gave a string, and it reduced that to this string of characters. And you can actually put the entire Library of Congress through the same program, and you still get the same string. But to decrypt it, to get it to read it again, you would need the other key to decrypt it. So that's the technical part, and it's interesting stuff. But for some people, they're going to be really jazzed by this. But for the most part, they're going to say, okay, tell me, okay, that's fine, but what does it do? For example, voting. There's a company in Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts, I believe, Votes, VOATZ, and they've developed a rather interesting app, or DApp, decentralized application, to allow people to vote using their smart devices. It goes through 3 different levels, and it's been used. It's been tried. They're not the first. There were others. I talk about it in the book, but they're the ones right now that the most. They seem to have the most traction today, and they've conducted elections all throughout the country, and in other countries as well. And it's just a brilliant system. You have the app. You have 3 different levels of security, and given the brouhaha today about voting, I can't think of any better, more secure system. Now, there was one state that tried it, and then you had 2 secure, groups, experts who said, "Oh, well, this can happen and this can happen, and the sky can fall," and so they backed away. But Votes is still out there. Since that time, they've conducted a number of successful elections. So that's one thing. There was a home in Gulfport, Florida, which was sold as an NFT. Basically, the value was conveyed, like is conveyance. The value of the home was conveyed to this code, this token, and that's how they sold that, and that's how it was sold. So, I mean, there's just so many different aspects. Like I said, land records. Estonia put, or health records. The country of Estonia, Estonia, put all their health records on blockchain. So the people can go to portals, like they put out 1,000 portals, so people can access their data from these portals. Land records, being able to store land records. I think Republic of Georgia, and there was I think that's right, and in somewhere a state in India put have put land records on the blockchain, and it's secure, it's safe. I mean, again, messaging. I talk about messaging. I give some examples of messagings that are decent, that are put on these blockchains, decentralized, encrypted. People want that kind of protection, especially today when you see all the hacking that's going on. I mean, decentralization to me makes sense. It's a better way. You break it up, you use the blockchain. There's different ways. I mean, I think blockchain has, in my estimation, there are issues, of course. I mean, you can go down the list, but there are issues. But it's a young technology. I mean, it started in 2008. The first NFT was 2014, and from that, I mean, that was only 10 years ago, and it's really popping up now. It kind of reminds me of the remember when computers came out, and there was in the 70s. There were people that built their own computers, and then IBM came out with it's Charlie Chaplin, and this can do great things, and it was like 20 megabytes. Oh my God, 20 megabytes! We thought that was amazing of storage, and but it was DOS operating system. So you put it in. My parents had one for their business, and you had all these characters, and you had to do this, and this. And then, lo and behold, Windows came around. Made it easy. I don't have to do that anymore. Just press. And then Apple came along, and with its interoperability between its computer and its smart devices, and it's just made it easier. And I think blockchain, because it can take a learning curve. It really does take a little bit of a learning curve. Is at that place where we're at the DOS place. We're at the DOS level, and I think it's there's undoubtedly somebody smart out there. They're going to build. I can see an operating system built around blockchain. I think it would be brilliant, but we're not there yet. Right now, they're working on all these things, all these technologies. So it's a work in progress, but it works.
And in a few years, it'll be the next thing that we take for granted, right? And it's amazing how many layers have had to be piled on in order for technology to get to where it is now. And it's silly to think about how we used to have computers that were not connected to anything, right? You used to have a computer and you'd play a game, or you'd use your word processor and print it out. But it's weird how it wasn't hooked into any phone line, no internet, no Wi-Fi. And it would be crazy for us to even try to spend 5 minutes these days on a computer without an internet connection. No. And sometimes these kind of things take time, and people have to kind of figure out the use cases. But what's great about all of these examples that you've given is that none of them are theory, right? They're all in use. They all have the proof of concept. The futures are already here. They all have that reality. And we only have a few minutes left here, but I want to make sure that people know about the book, Let's Meet Blockchain. And in our last few minutes here, I'm curious about your writing process, because this is a very thorough and long book. And sometimes you have to balance with your writing, like the time it takes you versus the fun and accessibility versus, should I go off and do any of this or that tangent? And so just in the last few minutes here, would you say, is there anything like unique or noteworthy about your writing process, and or like any kind of writing tips or advice you want to pass on?
Writing is an individual thing. My father could read my work and not see my name, and he would know it was me. So we all have a style, and that's something that it's a craft. It's a talent to have it, and then you have to craft it. And being a reporter, I had to go through, and I had two really good throughout my career, I had two really good editors. One who took me up when I was really green and molded me, And then someone came along, another reporter. He was a photojournalist, and he taught me about a lot about feature writing and things to look for. And then later on, ironically, he married the woman who would be my editor years later, and she taught me really how to look. When I'd get a story and she would put things in bold, she would ask these questions, what about this? What about this? What about this? And so it got to be kind of now but as the time went on, I didn't have those notes got fewer and fewer because I anticipated what she would ask me. So for me, it's just, it's a craft. Everybody has a different way of doing it. I mean, this was research. I was a liberal arts major from Millsaps College in Jackson, Mississippi. And I was sociology philosophy major, and we had to do a lot of writing, and we read theory, and we had, I had economics and history and political, all these things. So that's another way of building the brain to think and deduce things. So between that and just work, I was lucky. I was lucky. I had some great stories. I worked with some wonderful people, and I was, I miss it. I'll be honest, I miss it. But that's, this is something new. This is a new road for me. I didn't anticipate being on this road. I was working. I'm listed on Upwork as a freelance writer, and someone with Near Foundation, NEAR Foundation, which is near university, and they build on the Ethereum blockchain, and they are just, they're super intelligent people. Not much patience sometimes, but they're brilliant people. And he was looking to expand to looking for journalists and artists to write about talk about blockchain, because they're in the bubble. I call it the silent revolution. Part of this revolution because they picked up the mantle from Satoshi Nakamoto and they've carried it forward. They just like, we're not going to listen to you anymore. We're going to do this. We're just carrying on. And the other part is they stay in their room. They're like Sheldon and Leonard. They stay in the room and they talk their stuff, and they don't go out of the room that much. But what they're bringing to the world is amazing. And so, anyway, he wanted to get it out of that room. He wanted to get it out of the bubble, tech bubble. So he came, and I did they gave me like a 3-month fellowship basically that was a fellowship to start learning about this stuff. And I took that information and built the book. It was just fascinating. It took all my skills, everything I learned as a journalist through life, education, to write this book. Because honestly, before I started this project in October 2022, I knew nothing. And again, it was just dogged reading, knowing how to read the documents, knowing what to look for, knowing what was important, breaking it down, just beating it down to its simplest components. And I had to go back. I mean, there was a time I had to go back and I said, "Oh, this chapter is just wrong." I had to tear, and there's nothing worse than have to go back into a story and tear it apart. But it had to be done. So yeah,
I love this concept of beating up your writing. You've kind of alluded to it a few times, right? You have something to say, but your editor looks at it and asks these different questions, and then you yourself get a sense and intuitiveness of kind of self-editing as you work up the muscle and just become someone that you get a feel for, like, okay, here's how this should be presented.
Well, you should respect it. Writing is something to respect. And so I have a lot of respect for it. And I have a respect for good writers. People that just put down copy machines, that's fine. But the writers I've known, worked with, they're all talented in their ways, and they bring a lot. So yeah, when you get deeply involved, I used to have stacks of, when I doing project, we'd have, working at the Daily, we'd have like projects, daily stories, weekend stories, and I would have stacks of paper, and you just had to work through that stuff to get that 15, 20 inches. I mean, 20 inches would be a long story. 15, 20-inch story from all these pages, down to that 20 lines and what's important. So
Right.
that was my coming out. So it served me well for this book. And like I said,
You find that
really people, even if they're not invested in this, they are. Again, we talked about this, but I would say in my book, I say most people don't even have a clue that this is in use, or that their companies are involved. And this is the thing, law, it's changing our laws, and they don't realize. And the laws, the laws with regard to decentralized autonomous organizations, with the laws regarding smart contracts, cryptocurrency. These are things that need to be serious engagement. And there's really not, that's really not happening. You've got a hodgepodge of legislation here. I mean, we're talking worldwide, not just in the United States, we're talking worldwide. Everybody's grappling with this. And it needs a serious conversation.
and there's guys like you who get that conversation
I'm
started, who
trying
kind of
to, man.
distill
I'm
the
trying
mountains
to.
into something interesting.
I'm trying to. It's like, it's just one of those things. You come in and you have, hey, this is happening, and it's like, I feel kind of like Al Gore when he was talking about climate change. It's like, this is happening, and we're like, oh, that's interesting.
And
It's
it
like
it
that.
changes
It,
it,
it
it changes so much, and it's to our detriment if we're ignorant of these things.
Well, it's more, it's this movement. We're going to be moving into this new direction that's really exciting. Again, privacy, and we're going to be, the big platforms, centralized platforms are just going to, they're going to be fighting. I mean, some of them are already adopting some of these principles, some of these things. Banks are investing in, for example, in blockchain technology. Stock market, financial institutions, they're all investing. They don't really, I don't think they really know what they're investing in. They think it's a cool thing, but this is going to change how we interact on the web and off the web for the foreseeable future. And it's starting, we're right at the beginning of time here for that. And it's happening right now. And there's a lot of dedicated people. They're behind their doors, and they're working like bees in a beehive to improve it. And we've just got to find a way to catch up and pay attention.
And we have to understand, which is sometimes tough to do because it changes so much. And even when we were in the middle of COVID and they were trying to roll out some kind of system where before we had a vaccine, if you caught COVID, you could click a button on your phone, and there was something with like all the Bluetooth pairings you'd done, and it was kind of had like a unique identifier and anonymous, and people were mad about it because they didn't understand the anonymized, decentralized ideas. They just thought, oh, the government's tracking my every move. And it was hard to explain, like, well, hey, they did it in a mathematical way where like you could set this alert and the others that you had been in proximity to would be notified, but it was just people didn't understand these big ideas. So we definitely need the time that is needed in order for these concepts to sink in. And it changes so much, and we're here to give people a taste of that.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we send people your way, so that way they can be updated with your social posts, the next book, your speaking, etc. So you have this book, Let's Meet Blockchain, available on Amazon. And then I know you're on LinkedIn as Sylvain Metz, but what are some next steps here? Is there other social media, website resources? What should someone go and run and do after listening to this podcast?
Well, what they should run and do is, like I said, my book is like, it's like the first date. Put your toe in the water. It's that meet the neighbor. That's what the cover is about, going to meet the neighbors. Don't be afraid. Go meet the neighbors, because whether you believe it or not, this is affecting your life. They should start learning about it in a normal way. Forget the hysteria about crypto. Just put that out of your mind. Don't worry about that part. That's the hysteria. That's the crypto buzz. Ignore that. Just look at it. Just take some time to look at how, as I mentioned, all these ways it's being used now. I mean, your health records on blockchain, amazing. People are doing that now with their cards. Voting on blockchain, buying music and buying art and investments using NFTs. It's just amazing. I mean, there's some right now. There's some close to almost 10,000 coins and tokens out there. And they stay about the same. Some say it's up to 20,000. So in a way, I mean, it's still the Wild West. That part's still the Wild West. But again, that's one component. That's one part of the whole picture. So don't get hung up on crypto. Pay attention to the big picture, which is your product.
And what it can be used for. And you mentioned earlier Steve Jobs and Apple. Their big shtick was, well, you have this computer and it's got this Motorola processor and it's got this mouse and this GUI, but the big deal is then what you go on to use the computer for, right? Use it for your word processing and your digital art. And I like how the subtitle of your book is how it's about working, creating, and playing. So many different uses, and we need to get this awareness. And so the book is Let's Meet Blockchain, and the man, the myth, the legend, the author is Mr. Sylvain Metz. So add him on LinkedIn, tell him you love the book, tell him you love the podcast, get the book, and then you'll kind of get excited about this idea about blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFT, and you'll be excited and motivated to learn more about this. So any final advice for us here, Sylvain? Any like powerful life lesson or just like something you want to pass on to future generations?
Well, just all I would say is if you have a passion, this sounds trite, but follow your passion. Don't let people tell you you can't. If you believe you can do it, go ahead and do it. If you believe you're a good writer, endure. And if you're committed, the doors will open for you.
Very nice. Follow your passion. And the first step, that first day to following your passion is claim the book, Let's Meet Blockchain by Sylvain Metz. Wonderful conversation. Wonderful speaking to you, Sylvain.
You too. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate it.